Welcome to Energizing the South for Energy Justice. Give us a minute. We want to make sure we honor everybody's time and give them a little bit of time to get in. And so we always move with grace. We want to just give it just a moment before we get started. How are you doing, Ms. Styles?
Hi.
Hi, I just figured out my unmute. I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. We want to give it just a minute and then we'll go ahead and get started. In the age of Zoom, everybody's zoomed out. And so we make sure we record so we can send it out for those that register. So not everybody will join tonight, just so you know, but we want to make sure that those that do, we give them enough time to get in here. Hey, Jerry. My crew is here. I hope everybody's day has been well and that you all have enjoyed the warm weather in the South. I've been in DC and it's been, the highs have been the lows for the South. Yeah.
So it's cold in DC?
It is cold in DC. It got up, I believe, to 60 degrees today, but that it started off in the 30s. Now, again, I know Jerry, I know I shouldn't be talking like this in front of you. I know it.
No,
Jerry's,
23 degrees this morning here.
Jesus.
Jerry, where are you?
I'm in northern Michigan.
Well, it's colder more than it's hot.
Degrees here, and somebody just complained to me that it's cold a few minutes ago. So I was like, really?
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started and at least get going. We've got one of our guests that has showed up already, and we still have one that'll be joining us as well. While we are at it, let's go ahead and take a moment because we're small. Take a moment and just introduce ourselves. I'll start off. I'm Michael Malcolm. I'm the founder and executive director of the People's Justice Council, as well as executive director of Alabama Interfaith Power and Light. And I am grateful to be here, but even more grateful that you all are here for this as well. And I will pass it on over to Kyle because Kyle is right next to me. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I'm sorry, Kyle. I won't pass it over to you yet. I'll pass it over to, is it Miss Styles?
Yeah, Miss Styles is fine.
I'm sorry?
Miss Styles is fine. My first name is said Siobhan.
Siobhan. Okay, I knew Styles. I wasn't gonna get that other one wrong.
Well, my name is Siobhan. I am just curious. I'm very interested on what this initiative is and what y'all are doing. I read some about it before I RSVP'd. And I guess I would just like to learn more and see how to get involved in your cause.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And why don't we go to Jerry next?
Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. I'm Jerry Friedman, grants manager with People's Justice Council. I'm a transplant from Florida to northern Michigan, so I'm kind of a recovering Floridian. And it's great to be with you all. And I'll pass it to Portia.
Hey everybody, I am Portia. I'm the executive director of Black Belt Women Rising. We're a gender and environmental justice organization located in the big city of Uniontown, Alabama. And we service 7 counties in the Alabama Black Belt, in the heart of the region is what I call it. And I'm just happy that Kyle, as well as Brother Malcolm, has invited me here tonight. And I look forward to talking with all of you.
Thank you.
And I pass it on to Marisha.
Marisha.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for trying. Thank you for trying. Hi, everyone. My name is Marisha Malcolm. I am the social media coordinator for the People's Justice Council. I'm happy to be here with y'all. I won't be long, stay long, but I am happy to go ahead and introduce myself. I guess I could pass it to, is this Ann?
Hi, I'm Ann, and I'm in Atlanta, and I work with Reverend Malcolm and Jerry on a project about air pollution. So I just came to be more connected and learn more.
Thank you. I guess I'll take it over and I'll pass it on over to Aaliyah. And then after Aaliyah, we'll have Gayla. And after Gayla, I will pass it back over to you, Kyle, to introduce yourself and to take it from here.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Aaliyah, and I'm new to the team, and I'm here to learn as much as I can. And thank you for having me.
I think that's my cue. Hi, y'all. My name is Gayla. I'm the policy associate over at Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. Pronouns are they, them, all of them. And yeah, I pass it back.
Well, it's so nice to have all of you here. We are expecting another guest speaker, but Avery is going to be a few minutes late. But I'm Kyle Kreider. I am the program and policy director for Alabama Interfaith Power and Light and the People's Justice Council. So I get to work with the wonderful Rev Michael Malcolm. And while Rev Malcolm is a globetrotter, we are ostensibly based in Birmingham, Alabama. And we work at the intersection of energy, climate, and all things justice related. You will be hearing first from again, we want to welcome everyone tonight. It's good to see old faces as well as new. And tonight, for our first guest speaker, we have invited Ms. Portia Shephard, who introduced herself earlier, because we had the honor and pleasure of visiting some of Ms. Portia's friends in Uniontown, Alabama on Earth Day. But we were a day early for the big event. They actually had the biggest part of their Earth Day celebration on Saturday. We were there on Friday. So let me go on and honor Portia's presence and let her tell you about Uniontown, about Earth Day, and about a lot of things going on. And you're on mute, Portia.
Okay, hey, thank you so much. I want to say, so our organization started based off of a need in our community. That's why our mission is bringing resources home. For years, we have watched other organizations, and I worked in prevention education for years, that they will write the grants for our area, but we don't see the same energy then in their base city. And so our organization came about to be that medium. Now, we do have another organization here called Choice, which is where I am right now, actually doing my GED class. And they are a resource-based organization, but they're not domestic and sexual violence, nor do they handle environmental. So we're not crashing with anyone. We're open reign. Our organization is prevention, education, advocacy, and training based. Just yesterday, we had a training with the Attorney General office. He actually came, and for the first time, according to local historian Florence Sanders, in the history of the city, an Attorney General visited Uniontown, Alabama. And he came down along with Chris Lim from his office, as well as Gabrielle Helix, to do a training with our law enforcement on human trafficking in the Black Belt. We got two major highways that are coming through our area, and we want to make sure that our officers are not only prepared for what that's going to bring, but also continue to service the people in our community. So we're excited about the work that we have done. We have a domestic and sexual violence task force that we do monthly, where we go around through the 7 counties that we serve, which includes Perry, Hale, Greene, Sumter, Wilcox, Choctaw, and Marengo counties. And so we go to each county each month, someone hosts it, and then we do it. Actually, on Saturday, we have a event in Uniontown, Alabama for Sexual Assault Awareness Month to close out the month for victims of sexual assault, where we're going to do a planting tree ceremony, as well as we'll be moving forward to make sure that that we are collaborating with everyone and taking a stand for victims of sexual assault. On the environmental side, now that's the gender side of things. On the environmental side of things, we definitely work with the United Nations hack. They did a hack where the United Nations came in to do a study about how to improve Alabama wastewater. And so Mr. Eden, as well as myself and Ms. Esther Calhoun, we were a part of that conversation. And from that conversation, we're now going into rooms being heard, and we're changing research because, you know, it's easy to Google about the Black Belt, but it's different when you have someone who actually live here to report. And so those are some of the things. And then, Kyle reached out to us about Arm in Arm, and we was like, okay, so it's an organization here called Choice. It's an acronym, and choosing to help other people excel. I'm paraphrasing it, but you know, and then Mifa Bully is the executive director, and so they had Earth to Arbor Day week, and so it started with the cleanup. They came down for the cleanup, and then the youth from our church, I organized for the youth of our church to come out and do a mural. They did a mural in 48 hours, and I mean, over 100 volunteers came and showed up to complete that mural in a 48-hour period, and it was amazing. I came out there Sunday for the reveal and the storytelling of it. We had over 1,000 people to watch live on Facebook, and everyone is so excited. And it has done, just by coming in our town now, that mural has changed just the feel of our town that is covered with blight. And so it opened up a lot of doors, and we're very excited about what that is doing here in our city. Now, I was just telling Kyle and Malcolm that some of our volunteers were upset after they did the cleanup because some people didn't respect their hard work. But the good news in that is they will be the watchdogs now, because they don't want to do that hard work anymore. So those are just some of the things that we have been doing in the last month or so. In the last year, we have an LGBTQ portion of our organization, and we started out with 2 people on a monthly Zoom call with young people. We are now at 9, and we're so excited about young people coming into a space every month, free of judgment, you know, free of being called out, right here in rural Alabama, and they let loose. And the stories and the help, we have people that come in on the different calls from different organizations, such as Free to Be, that used to be an organization in our state, but James, he continued to work under the radar to talk about gender identity issues, which has led to suicide attempts in our area, and in some cases, suicide completion. And you can just tackle suicide. Most people are like, oh, everyone needs to get trained on suicide, but you need to find out the root of the problem. And that's what we've been doing as it relates to our call. So those are just some of the things that we have been doing with the 2-person staff. And because of our work with our AmeriCorps Vistas, we were awarded 2 summer associates. We have an environmental coordinator that's going to work during the summer to help us combat the wastewater sewage fight that we're currently in. I call it a war, an environmental wastewater war. And then we're also going to have a victim advocate, volunteer advocate. And the reason why we have that is because one of the organizations, like I talked about earlier, that written grants for our area, our victims used to have to drive over an hour ahead. We were helping financially either put them in hotel rooms or get them a gas card so they can at least go get the rape kit done. Well, we start having our task force meeting, they start coming in. So now that organization comes to our area, our local hospital, to do the rape kit, and our victims no longer have to drive an hour or 2 hours away. So, but we need someone to go in with the victim as they wait. And that's what the volunteer coordinator is, our volunteer advocate is. She or he will be in the hospital with the victim as they wait on the nurse to get here from Tuscaloosa to be able to administer the rape kit and do the picture, the same services, which is a difference between kit collection and same services. So those are just little things that we've done. in the past year, this year actually, and the end of last year, because our AmeriCorps Vista started in October. So from October 2021 up until now, those are some of the things that we have done, and very excited about the growth and how fast things are going on a daily basis. I know that was a lot of information, I know, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Ms. Stiles?
Yeah. Ms. Shepherd, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Stiles.
I was just curious, where are you based?
We're based in Uniontown. Our office is in Uniontown, Alabama. Black Belt Women Rising. You can visit our website, blackbeltwomenrising.org. You can see our end of the year report on there as well. This is our first full year in operation. We were awarded back in December 2019, December the 6th to be exact. We got our 501c3 status on December the 6th, 2019, but this is our first full year in full operation. So we're excited about the work that we're embarking on.
Just one more question. Are you familiar with the Family Sunshine Center in Montgomery?
I am familiar with Family Sunshine Center. They no longer cover Perry County. They dropped the grant that they had to cover our area. Now One Place Justice System. I just reached out to their executive director, but Sabre Sanctuary as well as Turning Point has been coming to our domestic and sexual violence task force meeting, which is in person and online. So they won't have to travel so far to our area. But I am familiar with them, with what they have done in the past. But as far as like right now, the one organization that have been servicing our victims have been Turning Point and Tuscaloosa Safe Center, simply because of the fact that it's a 15-minute commute to the local hospital compared to going to Selma, which is a 30-minute commute. And that in time, and anyone knows about survivorship, any minute or more, it seems like an hour after trauma. So that's one of the reasons why we were working with Brian Whitfield, and we're crossing our fingers because they're redesigning the emergency room, and we will possibly have a room. And we're excited about that part, because now they can come in and they won't have to worry about nobody seeing them, and they can definitely have their space and time. So we're excited about it.
I just want to say what you're doing is so amazing and awesome. And I've been volunteering at Family Sunshine Center for a few years, and I'm just so glad to meet you and hear about what you're doing over there, because that's just great. That's all.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I was at Family Services in North Alabama. I was at Turning Point for 5 years, and then I went to Family Services in North Alabama for about 4 years before I opened up my own. And so I'm excited, and I know what we're capable of doing. And I also was in prevention education, working 9 counties by myself for $26,000 a year. I always tell people that when people think people make all this money, but I focused on the Black Belt simply because I knew that. And when I used to go in, I used to do good touch, bad touch with kin and pre-K students and good healthy and unhealthy relationship classes. We saw the results of that, and reporting increased because a lot of times people just didn't have their space. So I know the importance, in my heart and my passion is for rural Alabama to get those particular services, particularly in prevention education, which is ignored by a lot of people, but it's definitely important on the reporting piece of things, because it can get the person the help in which he or she deserves.
Yes, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
So, Portia, let me first commend you for your work. You have done an excellent job in advocating for your community. And also in your presentation, you described but didn't directly point out this intersectionality that you're now working within when it comes down to gender justice and environment. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we find out, in particular in rural communities, we all suffer the same, and it doesn't matter, but it's not all treated the same.
Right.
So in rural communities, disaster happens. And when disaster happens, you have disaster recovery, and a lot of times it's dealt with by institutions that discriminate against our LGBTQIA brothers and sisters.
Right.
And so, or loved ones. And so what we're looking at is designing this resiliency hub that takes this intersectionality and can meet this intersectionality, but also speaking beyond just the abuse to the ongoing abuse that doesn't happen by another person's hands, but happens every day through their utilities.
Right.
And really being able to attack what keeps us impoverished. So being able to work within community and have community, caring for community, just like your organization is doing in both the environment and dealing with the water infrastructure, as well as dealing with the gender justice and dealing with the domestic abuse. And so being able to see all of it and also also adding into that, this ongoing slow violence of poverty that happens in our rural communities. I commend you and I thank you for your hard work.
I appreciate that. And a lot of times people ignore rural areas. We have to be approached a lot different than just Birmingham, even though Birmingham a big country city, but you still have to approach us a lot different. And the discrimination is a lot more harsh when it comes to identity, gender identity. To hear, I remember we had our Christmas gathering. It's called Slay the Day. It was so fun with our LGBTQ community. And we had group sessions, and I got permission to share, not particularly, but just a consensus, to hear young and older members of the LGBTQ community talk about them either attempting or thought of attempting suicide that year based off the story of discrimination right here. I have a young man that's in my youth department right now that mother and father, who I looked up to, kicked him out of the house because he came out. This is not New York. Like I tell people this all the time, this is right here in our backyard. And simply because we are not discussing it doesn't mean, and that's one thing I like about this organization, Choice, they have this art program. And in that art program, one of the things that happens is that people don't identify what homelessness really is. Most people think it's what you see when you go to the bigger cities. But here they go stay with an aunt, or they go stay with a cousin, or they go stay with a friend. But that's homelessness. And when we have a lot of young people who have come out that don't have a space to go. So another young lady, her name is Lachey, I helped her write a grant, and she got a trans grant because I don't know if you guys are familiar with the show Pose, but they had a show called Pose that showed on FX that showed the inner workings of our house in the LGBTQ community. And she was doing it, and I'm like, you need money for this. Well, now she is now a foster mom. And when I did her interview for her to become a foster mom through this organization, because she was blocked, that's another discrimination that she's going through now. She was blocked through the local DHR. She got approved through the state, she passed everything, and the local DHR blocked her because, and the lady ended up losing her job, but she's in litigation now for that. But when I did it, the lady said something, and I'm gonna end there because I know you got to go on, but she discussed the need in our state for foster parents to take on the LGBTQ youth. And a lot of times they say it, but then they're trying to, pray them straight. And you and I both know that does not work. And so, but when you're talking about 2,000 and 3,000 young people that she discussed with me, that she know of that are in their system that need a place to go because of that, that lets you know that need is there. And they do experience discrimination for getting their water turned on. Like it took her an act of Congress to get her pretty much literally, we had to get people involved for her to get connectivity to the local sewage. The guy ended up losing his job, but he made a comment to her, gay people, they said the N-word to gay people, basically, don't need water. What? So because he's gay, he don't need water? That's stupid. So that's the level of discrimination that they face, because in rural areas, they feel like they have no one that they have to answer to. And so they can get away with it because they've gotten away with it for so long. Whereas when you go in cities, you have, I can call this organization, I can call this organization. And so up until we start getting started, they had nowhere to go. They just took it and go home and cry. But now we're hooking them up with counseling. Now we're doing those things. So the things that they're facing that you just talked about, that those things can be combated in different ways. And now they have the know-how on who they need to connect to get lights and water, basic needs met with respect.
I want to point out something you just said as we get ready to transition to
Okay.
Avery. But you just said that they had no one, they feel like they've got nowhere to go and no one to turn to. That's an indictment on our faith communities. That's a direct indictment on our faith communities. When we talk about energizing the South for energy justice, we especially are speaking to our faith communities because we want to energize justice. We want it to reign in the hearts of the people that it's supposed to matter to the most. Mm-hmm. And we want to be the solution that this problem is looking for.
Absolutely.
Faith communities.
I actually, yesterday when I introduced Steve, one of the things I liked him, because at first I'm mad at him because he stole our chief. Chief Tommy Reese is his chief of police for the AG office. I'm through with him because he took chief from us. But I told him how he redeemed himself was the organization I'm working for in North Alabama, we had a program. And so we partnered with the local reentry program. And one of the victims talked about how him throwing her in jail and rehab changed her life. Mm. But how they have their drug court, this is what I want to tell you. It is how law and faith come together. They have Celebrate Recovery. I've been trying to get this down in the Black Belt for a long time, but Celebrate Recovery. And it is changing lives up in Meth Mountain because you do have churches that are involved in the healing process, both spiritually as well as physically, in an addict going from addict to being clean. And it works when you work together. And it's not a lot of money. They take up $1 or $2 doing the collection, but they are putting in the work. And how they did it, they come together. So it's not all on one church. They have groups each week that is in charge of the food. Then they have churches that host the different Celebrate Recovery. And that's what you're seeing. And the results of it, you're seeing people go to get through drug court and they staying clean because they have somewhere to go once they're through with the legal aspect of their addiction. And so I say, I agree with you 100%. You know, it hurt me that I had my pastor to say to me that, you know, the ignorance, you know, it's like, I can't make someone gay. I'm not making anyone gay. You talk about going outside of the four walls, but you want to go at it in a way that is not, it looks good, but it's not being effective. And if we want to be effective as believers, we have to get down with the community and meet them where they are, where they are. And that's how we can see the results and the fruit of our labor, when you're meeting people where they are and meeting their needs directly. If a person come to you and say, if a victim comes to me and say they just want a place to sleep for the night, why am I trying to hook her up with long-term shelter and care or counseling when the only thing she said was, or he said was, I want to sleep for a night. So the only thing my job is to give her a room for the night. Then the next day we can go back and see what we want, but you meet them. And that's what we have stopped doing, especially here in the Black Belt. Churches have stopped serving and started entertaining. And if we go back to service, we can be able to see those results in our community. Stop blaming white Republicans for work that we're supposed to be doing ourselves.
So now we've heard the what. We've heard what the problem is. We see that there's this intersectionality, and I want to lift back up something that was just said. Once again, we feel like there's no one that we can turn to. There's nothing that can be done about it. And again, that's an indictment on our part. Just as they feel like they can do whatever they want to do when it comes down to gender justice, they also feel like they can do whatever they want to do when it comes down to our utilities. And in particular in our rural communities, oftentimes they are governed by co-ops or served by co-ops where they have ownership of and don't even realize it. Who better to help them to understand that they have this ownership than those who they come to see every week to give them inspiration and hope. It would be something for me to go to service one Sunday and hear I'm a boss. We can celebrate that. We can celebrate that on a Sunday. Everybody in this congregation owns a utility company. That's something worth celebrating. But we don't think in those terms because we don't see the intersectionality. We don't understand that our utility companies don't care anything about us. They only care about profit. And as a result, they're wearing us out and our planet. And so it's causing all these calamities. And so we need to solve this issue. And I believe that we have a model for solving this issue in building out these resiliency hubs as we energize the South for energy justice. I'm going to let Kyle get back to it so he can introduce Avery. And then I'm going to step back because I just wanted to talk to Portia real quick because your story and your description of your organization and the work that you are doing was just so dynamic. I had to explore it some more to fill out those points. But I really want us to hear, before I stop talking, they said they don't feel like there's anyone to turn to, and they don't feel like there's anything that can be done about it. It is a shame for us to hear those stories, walk away, be entertained by, and not do anything about it. That shouldn't be what any of our faith speak to. Kyle, it's on you.
Thank you, Rev. And thank you, Portia, and thank you everyone that's here. I know we've had a few new folks to join. Hopefully we will have some time at the end in addition to Q&A, so that if you would like to introduce yourself and you have not had a chance to do so already, please do so then. And of course, you're always welcome to introduce yourself and talk to each other via the chat. Portia, I'm not on Facebook, but I hope I had the right link to your Black Belt Women Rising Facebook group that I posted earlier. And I also posted another article that might be of interest to folks about Uniontown, about the tremendous environmental injustices, many injustices in Uniontown. As many on this call know, when the Kingston coal ash spill was cleaned up in Tennessee, this toxic, hazardous waste was transported to Uniontown, Alabama, where it miraculously became non-hazardous material to be deposited in a municipal landfill. That's the kind of thing that Uniontown is dealing with, on top of everything else that Portia was sharing. But we've got some good news as well, because, like Rev says, we're all feeling indicted right now, but we've got a plan to move from resilience. And I know resilience is a bit of a mixed word. We're all working on resilience hubs, but folk are tired of being told, you got to be more resilient. We've got to move from resilience to restoration. And in some cases, we've got to elevate folks to a level, it ain't restoration. In some cases, it's elevating folks to a level they've never had. And we have this exciting new grant called From Resilience to Restoration. It is a grant that is being supplied by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. And we have the honor and pleasure. Its focus is on the Gulf South states, but we rapidly want to move beyond that. As many of you know, we're part of the Justice 40 cohort, and we want to get money, federal funding, to frontline communities throughout the South and beyond. But the initial grant focus is Gulf South states. But we are working with Avery Lamb, who will be telling you about himself and Creation Justice Ministries based in North Carolina. We're working on a national hub, and Avery will be describing some of the reasons we chose him and his marvelous team for this goal. So let me stop talking and let Avery introduce himself and talk about his team and some cool things on the horizon, what they've already got and some cool things on the horizon. Welcome,
Yeah,
Avery.
Great. Well, thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Rev. Good to see some other familiar faces here. And sorry for being late. You know, alternative transportation is amazing, but it's not amazing when you get a flat tire and you don't have a spare tube with you out there. So I got caught out with a flat tire on my bike. So I'm glad I made it here in time. And sorry to miss that conversation before. Just caught the back end, and yeah, I was definitely edified by it. But yeah, thanks for the introduction, Kyle. Yeah, my name is Avery Davis Lamb. I'm a co-executive director of Creation Justice Ministries. Creation Justice Ministries is an ecumenical environmental organization. We work with 38 different Christian communions and denominations, ranging across the theological spectrum from mainline churches to historically African-American denominations to Orthodox communions, all with the mission of protecting, restoring, and rightly sharing God's creation. A few years ago, we launched a program called Faithful Resilience, which is what brings us here today. I'm going to link to our website on Faithful Resilience here. But the question that we're asking through this Faithful Resilience program is, how can our churches be hubs of resilience in their communities, helping weather the physical and the spiritual storms of the climate crisis? So we know that the storms that are facing our communities are not just physical, they're not just impacting us from flooding and from wildfires and from heat waves. They're also impacting us spiritually. The ways that are the slow violence of climate change that is affecting the way we perceive our homes, the ways that our places are disappearing under our feet, and the people and places we love are being displaced and moved around. So how, as the church, and this, so just to say, Creation Justice Ministries is, we work with Christians, but thinking more broadly, how can communities of faith, who we work with, who we partner with at places like the People's Justice Council and Alabama Interfaith Power and Light, how can communities of faith be hubs of resilience in the face of these storms? How can they provide the kinds of social, spiritual, physical services that are needed? And so often communities of faith are already, like Rev was saying, already resilient. We don't need them to tell them they're so resilient. They know they're resilient. And so how can we help communities of faith understand how the climate crisis is going to change the reality of the communities where they find themselves? So there's a few ways that we have taken this initiative under at Creation Justice Ministries. One of the ones that I want to point to is, if you scroll down on this page that I just linked to, you'll get to a map that is covered in orange dots. Actually, let me just share my screen here if that's all right. Would that be possible, Kyle?
Let me make sure you can share. Yeah. Is it
Kyle,
working?
go to the share content or share button and just hit all multiple participants can share or something like that. I don't know the exact word.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Yeah. So there we go. So this is what we've come to call the church climate crisis map that we developed just a few years back. Each of the orange dots you see on this map is a congregation, a religious congregation. It's not just Christian churches. There's other communities of faith represented here too. It's not every single church, but it's about 75,000. So it's a pretty good representative sample of what our churches are facing. So just because I'm most familiar with the coast of North Carolina, we're gonna scroll in here and look at the coast of North Carolina. So the goal of this map is just to help local faith leaders understand the kind of realities of climate change that they might be facing in the next several decades. So we can scroll in here on, this is the Albemarle Pamlico Peninsula, North Carolina. So let's scroll in here a little bit. And over here on the left can toggle through both different traditions, different religious traditions, but also different layers for climate disasters, for hurricanes, and for sea level rise. So this is the current sea level as it stands on the coast of North Carolina. Using this map, you can see what 1 foot of sea level rise will look like here. We'll toggle back and forth here and see quite a bit of inundation already at 1 feet of sea level rise. 3 feet, quite a bit more. And 3 feet is, if we continue business as usual, 3 feet could be possible in the next 30 years. And then 6 feet of sea level rise, which could be possible in the next century if we continue business as usual. So what we can do here is zoom in a little bit more and see, how are these local communities of faith? Let's go, sorry, going to find an area with maybe a few more churches here. I'm colorblind also, so sometimes the orange is a little challenging. Here we go. How are communities of faith actually going to be affected by sea level rise? So, here's a good example here. We have Pamlico Presbyterian Church here, which is in a community just upstream, up the sound from a community, this city here, that will likely be inundated by sea level rise zoom in here a little bit. I see Rev squinting, so zoom in. hope this helps out. So you can see, if you're the pastor of Pamlico Presbyterian Church, what's the best way for you to serve your community when you're thinking about the next 20, 50, 100 years? Well, you can't ignore the fact that a lot of your congregants who are living here in town, their homes are going to be chronically flooded, and if not chronically flooded, severely impacted by hurricanes, by storm surge. And so that raises a whole host of questions for you as a pastor or for you as a lay leader, whoever it is who is involved in the life of this congregation. If you're being the witness of God's love to the world, you have to start thinking about how to prepare for the realities of climate change that are coming to affect this area, how to build, how to adapt, build physical structures perhaps of resilience, start talking about how climate change is affecting the community, is going to affect the community, and how it's doing so right now. And start listening to the folks around you who are already experiencing the impacts of climate change, and building resilience in the face of it, and connecting with Broad Creek UCC down here, maybe connecting with Pierce Chapel AME Zion Church, and thinking about how you can create a network of resilience hubs who are all in this together in this community that is going to be devastated by sea level rise. And that this community is not going to get investment from the federal government. Hopefully it can. We should advocate for rural communities to get investment from the federal government. But so much investment in climate resilience and adaptation goes toward urban areas that rural areas are so frequently left behind. And it is the church who serves as the hub of community life and who needs to be prepared to serve as the hub of resilience as climate disasters continue to unfold, as the slow violence of climate change continues to unfold around us. So that is the core of what we're trying to do through this Resilience to Restoration grant, is work with maps like this, work with the resources of conservation, work with local communities to learn together, to provide teaching opportunities, both in the Gulf South and beyond, so that what we're doing in the Gulf South resonates beyond, and so that what we're doing in the Gulf South connects with the work of resilience in other areas of the country, in other parts of the Southeast, in the Northeast, how it connects perhaps with other areas that are experiencing climate disasters that are not necessarily water related. One of the things that I've learned about resilience is whatever the hazard is, the ways of building resilience, the methods for building resilience are generally the same, and that is strengthening social ties. But the best predictor of a resilient community is one that has strong social ties. And what's one of the best institutions for strengthening social ties in our community, especially across difference? That's the church. So to get back to what Kyle was saying, we don't want to end with resilience here. We want from resilience to restoration. The goal is to create communities that are not simply bouncing back from climate disasters, that are not caught in a continual cycle of rebuilding, a continual cycle of resilience, but that can use the climate crisis as an opportunity to bounce forward into a better world, to not only build resilience in their community and their church, but to advocate with the state, advocate with the federal government, advocate with agencies, to invest in these communities that have historically not been invested in. I'll end with a little anecdote here, which, I mentioned this in the chat, but, maybe we need to go from resilience to restoration to transformation. And I think in my tradition right now, we're in the season of Easter. And what I see in the story of Jesus Christ's resurrection is a person who went through the devastation of death and came back and was not restored. Let me tell you, he still had the holes in his wrist. He had the hole in the side of his body where he was stabbed by the Roman centurion, but he was transformed. He still bore the wounds of going through the death and restoration, and yet was transformed. And I think that's maybe the framework, one of the frameworks that we can think about with these communities is we can't just glide over the fact that our communities have gone through absolutely traumatic circumstances. Those wounds are still there. We still bear those wounds, and yet we can hope for a transformed world. So that's the end of my sermon there. I'll end with that.
Amen.
And an amen, Avery. We have a question in the chat from Ann. I wonder if a map like that could be useful for wildfires out west, except I haven't seen maps of predicted wildfire risk. And I think I saw some wildfire icons on yours.
Yeah. So I don't know anything about wildfire risk, and that's a great question. I do wonder if there's data on that. But there are, let me share my screen again so you all can see this. I was able to find some data that has current wildfires, or current fires at least. So let's go out west here. We'll go to New Mexico. Yeah, this is where it's really bad right now. So you can see these are, let's see what the layer's called. Yeah, USA current wildfires, current incidents. And then I think one of these layers, current perimeters here too. So let me zoom in here. So you can see what it is right now, which can be really helpful, I think, for, so here's the current perimeter for the Cooks Peak fire in New Mexico. So what does that mean for Immaculate Conception Church? So the hope for a map like this is to map on more climate risks as well, and not just climate necessarily, also sort of other conservation measures, public lands, access, biodiversity conservation. There's a lot of potential here. But yeah, wildfire risk would be a really interesting one.
Thank you, Avery. And I posted a link to a FEMA website that maps wildfire risk, and open to please keep the questions coming. Good stuff.
Hey, Rena, what I like about your presentation, but you know, this is our plan as well. But what I really like about your presentation is that you didn't follow on one particular topic or one particular disaster, a type of disaster, but you were able to look at a map that showed this could happen in your region, or this could happen in your area, this could be happening in your area, this could be happening, and you met that. So again, the theme for the night is intersectionality, but it also goes back to this burden that is being placed on our communities of faith to meet that need, because it truly does exist now. It's not happening later on, it's happening right now. One of the things that we see when we talk about doing weatherization is not just the lowering of utility bills, but also when you're in these communities that are suffering from air pollution, being able to help keep those air pollutants out of the household makes it a healthier and safer household. So even looking at that is a part of restoration and resilience, or resilience and restoration, but being able to look at it intersectionality and meeting the needs of the community. It looks like Layla has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Avery.
Hey,
I love
good
the
to see you.
presentation. Good to see you. And I actually use a lot of that climate resilience program when I'm presenting to churches to try to get them involved in the work that our group does. One thing I was going to ask, if you can put your hands on, you have a very powerful map that shows, it's one thing to show the effect on the coastline of the sea level rise. It's another to show the effect on the inland churches. You know the map I'm talking about? I actually use that one a lot. I don't know if you can put your hands on it, but you know, like for example, Portia's up in Uniontown, and I'm down in Mobile, and Mobile is directly affected by sea level rise, but Uniontown, that whole area will be affected because of the climate migration that will happen as a result of the sea level rise. So I always use that map with the map of all the churches to show the effect. So I don't know if you can put your hands on that or not, but
yeah, let's see if I can pull that up here. I have it saved in a presentation here somewhere.
Avery, while you're looking for it, let me hit on that as well, because when we start looking at the climate migration, I understand that people are going in and they're still going and buying cheaper houses and fixing them up, which raises the housing value and the taxes in people's community, which is what gentrification is. And that's what's causing our houselessness issues. In particular in California, people can't afford to rent a house. The inflation is so bad already, and it's starting to happen in other places as well. Here in DC, you got camps where people are actually sleeping outside in tents. It's cold as all outdoors out here to meet right now, but people are outside sleeping in tents. That's an environmental justice issue, and it shows the intersectionality.
Yeah. So I found the map, and then there's Rev. That reminds me of something else I want to share here. So the map that Lel is referring to is it comes from this study from PLOS One, and I'll drop the link to this in the chat. Modeling migration patterns. Here's the chat. So let's see.
It's the next one over, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, yep. So here's, this basically is a visual. Let me zoom in so you can see it. A visualization of the counties that will be most impacted by human migration from climate change. So all the blue ones are coastal counties. So that's where folks are migrating from. And then the deeper red is the ones that will have a higher percentage of internally displaced people who are landing in those counties. So, I mean, yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
If you're not a coastal county in the Gulf South, you better open your doors and, start practicing climate hospitality. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to share, and maybe all have already come across this or encountered it, but it's the EJ screen tool from the EPA. yeah, getting some head shakes here. So I won't go too much into it, but I think, you know, this is something that can map a number of different layers as well, and, you know, really start looking at intersectionality, because you can map health disparities, climate change data, demographic data, a lot of really important stuff.
Avery, again, thank you for your presentation. Portia, thank you so very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
We have spoke to you tonight about the what, and we've even given you the how. Both you've heard the what. It's intersectional, y'all. It's not one thing, it's not another thing. It's all injustice. And what we are supposed to be doing is solving for injustice, because that is our job. As people of faith, as people of conscience, that is our job. It's to care for the community and the cosmos. Listen, thank you all for being here with us tonight. Look forward to getting the recording, as well as links to the various presentations and organizations. Our job is to lift up the voices of those who don't often get looked at. We want to make sure that we keep those who are working in community at the forefront of what we do and in places of leadership. Tonight, as always, I offer to you love, peace, and light.
Thank you, Brother
Have a good evening.